Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going to be doing a tutorial for Sage. Now, the first thing I want to mention is that Sage is a completely unique champion, and by that means I won't be doing a conventional tutorial for her. I won't be going map by map and site by site explaining how to defend in each area. Rather, I'll just be giving you guys an overall heads up on how to play the champion and best use her abilities. So before we get started, I'd like to thank you guys for watching and quickly remind you guys that if you do like what I do, don't forget to check out some of my other videos, leave a like and subscribe, and maybe even visit me over on Twitter or Mixer sometimes for a live stream every Tuesday and Saturday night. So as I mentioned earlier, this isn't going to be a conventional tutorial. I'm going to start here at the A site on Haven just because it's a great site with 2 points of attack. But remember, we will not be going from every site covering how best to watch them, because honestly, it just varies way too much, and her kit doesn't really suit that style of play. You can't really play a certain way every single time and have it be the most successful way. So the biggest thing to remember about Sage is rather than a combat agent, she's more of a supportive and or delaying agent. She's great at limiting enemies' sight lines, even though she doesn't have any smokes, and the ways that they can move. So when you're watching a site that has multiple access points, you really have to evaluate which one is the easiest and quickest for the enemy to get through. So take, for example, the site on A at Haven. You've got A long, which takes a very long time for the enemy to get through, and they have to walk through a giant open area with plenty of sight lines and different places for you to peek from. And then you've got A short, which is just a really quick corner that they're going to hop around and be right up in your face. With that in mind, the best suggestion is always to use your ice or slow orbs in this long open area, no matter which map you're on. So this includes C long and other places like B long on bind as well. The point of the ability use is to not stop them from going through because you want them to attack the site, but you want to make it as inconvenient and difficult as possible. So by placing that slow orb, you're automatically, one, getting inside their heads because they're slowed and they're panicked out in the open if they have to push this site, and two, giving yourself an advantage in the gunfight because they're going to be so distracted and focused on getting out or away from your slow that you're going to be able to take an advantageous fight from a good angle. The next most important thing that I'd like to mention about Sage is in regards to her wall ability. I almost never want you to use your wall ability to completely block off a corridor. There's very few situations I want you to do this. If you're being rushed and you just absolutely have to stop them, then use your wall ability to stop them and use your slow orb to delay them any further wherever you need to. But if they're doing a slow or set piece attack on a map or site, I would much prefer you to use your wall to actually just limit the areas that they can come into your site from. So like this, if you put up your wall here, you're now taking this giant opening, this huge opening that they could peek anywhere from. They could do a run and peek really far, or they could just barely peek the corners, slow peek, anything like that. And now you're forcing them into this tiny little corridor. So wherever you're holding from, you know where they're coming from for a fact, and they have no information on where you are. This makes it so that you're able to easily pre-aim on the spot that they're coming from. Of course, as we know, you can do the same thing as I said before, still leaving a small gap while still using your wall to boost yourself. Boosts are a great way to make use of different height angles that you're not normally able to get to, depending on the hero that you play. Sage is great at getting to these locations, but sometimes they can be really predictable, so I don't suggest you always do it, and definitely never do it every single time. You need to make yourself a little bit unpredictable so that they don't know how you're playing. Of course, when it comes to wall boosts, I'm not going to spend too much time on it in this video. I'll be coming out with a video later on, if you guys are interested in that, about different sneaky spots to wall boost yourself onto to try and catch your enemy off guard. But right now is just not the right time for that. There's tons of great ways and examples of what I was just talking about before on where to limit your enemy's sightlines and or movement areas with your wall. When you're doing this, just make sure that you think about the different places you could do it. Another great example is B or the mid site on Haven. With putting up your wall at this angle here, you're able to do multiple things for yourself, which are greatly beneficial. For one, when you put up this wall, you're instantly stopping anybody on the offensive side from being able to hide in that cubby, which gives them one less angle that they can come from. And two, if they do want to push this angle, they now have to come through, like I said before, a very tight choke point that you can just pre-aim and be ready for the fight. So make sure that whatever map you're playing on, you're always looking for the places that you would hide if you were on offense, and see if there's a way that you can just wall that off a little bit without putting yourself in danger to do so. To be fair, not every player is created equal. And your heal is on maybe, I think it's a 30-second cooldown. It's a very short cooldown. You can use it multiple times per round. So don't be stingy with it, and don't always save it for yourself. Keep an eye on the scoreboard. It's not that hard. You're always looking at your score. I know you are. I see you out there. But there's probably somebody on your team carrying. Even when you're losing, there's somebody outperforming the rest of the team. So when your heal is up, make sure you prioritize it on the person that's performing well. Now, a counter argument to that, of course, is you always want to be the mediator on your team. If you're just in solo queue and you're not in a 5-man stack, maybe the worst player on your team, the guy that's performing the worst, needs a heal. That doesn't mean that you just don't use it on him and you save it for the guy that's doing the best. Because honestly, in any competitive environment, the most important thing is your mental game. And if this guy's already doing bad, you know his mental game is going to be hurt. And if you're refusing to use your heal on him just because he's not performing well, that's going to drag him down lower. And honestly, it can only hurt you. So don't be stingy with your heals. They come back. You'll be able to use it again as long as you're playing safe. And the last thing that I don't think many people think about on Sage is that your ultimate doesn't take that long to charge up, and people are almost always willing to give you the ulti orbs on the ground and any bomb defusals that come up and are available to get your ulti up faster, because it's one of the most game-tipping or pivotal ultimates in the entire game. Knowing that, just use it. You're going to get it up faster than most people, and sure, you may want to save it for a clutch situation, but honestly, when it comes down to it, the time and likeliness of you finding it in a clutch situation is a lot lower than the actual value you would get from just rezzing anybody. If you just res somebody and they save their weapon, that is, what, $2,900 for an average weapon? Plus, if they get a kill, that's an extra $200. If they win you the round, great. But just res them. Your economy is so important when it comes to winning rounds. You're not going to win as many eco rounds, and if you don't res somebody and they go down onto a low buy because of that, now you've got a weak point on the map that can be exploited. So if your ulti's up, even if you're going to win the round, unless it's an extremely close game, I really suggest that you use that ultimate and res the player. Now, in contrast to playing Sage on defense, when you're playing Sage on offense, you don't want to be using your wall to lower the angle that you're attacking from. I know it should be obvious, but people, I can tell you for a fact, would take that advice and say, okay, he said to lower the angle of attack, and they'd wall themselves in like this and be like, okay, now I can push through this one little corridor. But you're really benefiting the enemy when you do that. It's not the same on offense and defense. Rather than lowering the amount of areas you want to attack from, you want to do the complete opposite when you're on offense. You want to lower the enemy's area that they can attack from. So if you're coming into a site, you really want to use your wall like a smoke grenade. That's the best possible thing you could do it. Except remember, your wall is actually better than a smoke because they can't push through it. And if they decide that they want to knock it down, you now know that they're there and can honestly set yourself up for their own little push through this tiny corridor. So when you're pushing into a site and say you're scared of somebody being on the left side here, you can wall off the early rotate from garage and both those boxes on the left side, easily push into the site. As always, guys, thank you for watching my video. I really appreciate it. If you like the video, don't forget to mention it down below in the comments, hit the like button, and subscribe to get my bi-weekly content every Tuesday and Friday evening. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you guys around.